Hi, it's Miss Keene. Today I'm going to teach you how to do rotations of coordinate points and images on a coordinate graph. So you have to know how to graph points and images first of all. So let's just review that a little bit about the basics of graphing. So if you're looking at my screen right now, a quadrant. There are 4 quadrants on a graph, and you can see I have them labeled. Your first quadrant is up in the upper right-hand corner, and it is your positive numbers. So your x is a positive and your y is a positive. And we can see that right here. Let me get a pen. Okay. Like this point right here. We always start at the center, the origin. That's the origin, 0, 0. It's kind of like a map. And we are trying to get to that point that I have in purple. So first we do our horizontal. How many units do we have to go across? Well, I have to go across 3. That comes first. So when we're putting our coordinates, it would be 3, comma, and then how many units to get to that purple spot do we have to go up or down? So in this case, it's up. So I have to go up 4 units. So this coordinate point is 3, comma 4. Okay. So that's your quadrant 1. Quadrant 2 is over here on the left-hand corner. And those numbers, if I just pick one out here, okay. So the x always goes first. So from the origin, that's like your home base, I come over to -6. And then I'm going up to +1. So that point, the second point that I put on the map, or the coordinate grid is -6, 1. And that's quadrant 2. Quadrant 3 is in your lower left-hand corner, and that is numbers that have a -x and a -y. And then finally, quadrant 4, these are numbers that have a +x and a -y. So let's see, let me give you a little bit more background that you're going to need to know about rotations on the next screen. You need to know which way clockwise and counterclockwise are, and it's related actually to a clock. And so if you look at a clock, the numbers they start at 12 and then they go to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. That is known as clockwise. So that is here on my right-hand side. Okay. And then counterclockwise is the opposite way that a clock goes. So if you're going backwards from the regular way that the hands on a clock move, that's called counterclockwise. Okay. So you need to know how to graph, and you need to know which way clockwise and counterclockwise are. So let's see how this works. Okay. So it's normal for them to tell you when you're looking at a problem, it'll be in 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and then it'll say clockwise or counterclockwise. So this example is 90-degree clockwise rotation. So let's think about that. Clockwise, first of all. So clockwise means we're going in this direction, just like a clock. In 90 degrees, I'll show you how that works. Now, think of a circle. There's 360 degrees in a circle. Well, if I start here at the top and I go 360 degrees all around this graph back to the original, so that's 360 degrees. Each of these quadrants, because there's 4 of them, 360 divided by 4, gives you 90-degree rotation. So every time you do a 90-degree rotation, your point or your image is moving to the next quadrant. So let me show you how this works. Just going to clean my screen a little. Okay. All right, let me put a point here. Let's start. Let's start with this one here. Okay, so that point, let's start there by saying what that coordinate is. I haven't left myself a lot of room. Okay, so I'm going to call that point A. Okay, and we're going to take point A and do a 90-degree clockwise rotation. So first we have to determine what is the coordinate of point A. So I always start at the origin, and remember, it's like a map. How many units do I have to go over horizontally, and then how many units do I have to go vertically? So I'm going over to the positive 5, and then I'm going up to the positive 3. So point A is 5, 3. Now I want to go 90-degree clockwise rotation. So I want to take that and I want to rotate it. I want to turn it 90 degrees. Okay, so it's right now it's in the first quadrant. Every time you go 90 degrees, it moves to a different quadrant. Every 90 degrees is a different quadrant. Okay, so here's 90 degrees. I want to go to the next quadrant clockwise. So point A is going to end up down here in quadrant 4. When I rotate it, I'll label all of them for you. Okay. It's going to go clockwise. It's going to jump to the next quadrant clockwise, 90 degrees. Now, it started at 0.53. When we go over the axis line, so anytime we pass one of these axis lines, the numbers in your original coordinate point flip-flop. So I'm going to go one box, one quadrant to the next quadrant here. So I need to flip-flop my numbers. It started as 5, 3. I'm just going to write them 3, 5. I'm going to flip-flop them. Now, in this quadrant, the x's are positive and the y's are negative. Okay, so I go back to my A prime and I keep the 3 as positive, but I want to make the 5 as negative. Now I go back to my graph and I plot this point. So from the origin, always starting at the origin, go over to positive 3. Now I'm going down to negative 5. So when I rotate point A 90 degree clockwise, it started at 0.53. 90 degree rotation would become 3, negative 5. Let's try another one. Now this is a 90 degree counterclockwise rotation. So think about that. Counterclockwise. So we're going the opposite direction of a clock. Okay. I'm going to start with my point. I'm just randomly picking them out. I'm going to start, right there. So it seems okay. You know what? Maybe I'll draw a triangle for this one. And we can see how it looks when you rotate an image. Okay, I'm going to call this point A. I'm going to call this point B. And I'm going to call this point C. So my first step is to get the coordinates for A, B, C down. What are the regular coordinates before I move anything? So point A, starting at the origin, I'm going to go over to -4 and then up to +3. So that coordinate is -4, 3. And I do the same thing with B and C. B is over to -2 and up to +3. And C is starting at the origin over to -3 up to +1. Okay. Okay, now I want to rotate this counterclockwise. So if I take point A, I want to go counterclockwise, the opposite direction of a clock. 90 degrees means I go one quadrant. In this case, I'm shifting it counterclockwise, one quadrant. So I'm going to start with point A, which was -4, 3. So A prime, I didn't leave my, it's hard to, I'm writing with the mouse. It's kind of hard. I'm going to flip-flop my coordinate numbers. So it becomes 3, 4. Let me get rid of. Let me just write that again. Okay, so we have A prime is going to become, flip-flopping my numbers, 3, 4. And I'm going 90-degree counterclockwise. So I'm going one box counterclockwise. So if A is up here, this is the second quadrant. It's going to pop down here to the third quadrant. All the numbers in the third quadrant are negatives. So -x, -y. So then I go back to my A prime and make the signs correct. Negative. Start at the origin, go over to -3, down to -4. That's my A prime. I'm going to do that with B and C. All right, so if B is -2, 3, flip-flop my numbers, 3, 2, and then put my correct signs in. So it's really -3, -2. Go over to -3 from the origin, down to -2. That is B prime. Do the same thing with C. Flip-flop my numbers. Quadrant 3 has negative x's and negative y's. So it's -1, -3. Go over to -1, down to -3. And that is my C prime. I find it easiest if I label as I go along. And now I'm going to connect them and make my triangle. Okay. So what has happened here is I've taken the triangle that had the point of C down and it's turning. So now it's kind of on its side and the C is over to the right. It's just turning 90 degrees. So it's just flipping over on its side. Okay, try one more. Now 180-degree rotation. So let's get our original point. We haven't tried anything. And let's see. Let's start with something let's do this one. Let's start right here. I'll just make a line for this one. So this is going to be point A. and this is going to be point B. Okay, so like my other examples, you're going to start with stating what the original points are. Starting from the origin, I'm going to do A first. Remember, it's like a map. How many units do I have to go to left, right, up, and down to get to that A? Okay, so I'm going to go to the right 2. So I'm at positive 2. And then I need to go down to negative 5. So that coordinate is to negative 5. And I'm going to do the same thing with B. I go over to 4 and down to negative 3. Okay. Now, I want to do a 180-degree rotation. Okay. So right now, I'm down here in the right corner, 180 degrees. Every time I pass one of these axis lines, that is another 90 degrees. So I want 180 degrees. And if you notice, it doesn't say in my directions whether to go counterclockwise or clockwise. Let's see why. Let's go A and let's do clockwise. If I go 90 degrees, it'll end up, we're going clockwise. So 90 degrees is going to end up over here in the bottom left or the third quadrant. Now, my directions say 180, so I want to go another 90. So I'm going to be up here in the top left-hand corner, which is quadrant 2. All right. Now, if I went counterclockwise, the same thing happens. Counterclockwise is going this direction. So 90 degrees brings me up to the first quadrant. I need to go another 90. So I'm going to end up in the second quadrant, whether I am going 180 clockwise or 180 counterclockwise. And that's why it doesn't tell you to go counterclockwise or clockwise, because they mean the same thing. You get to the same place. If you think of the coordinate graph like a map, think about that. There's different ways to get to school, to the mall. Yeah, that's all it is. It's just a different way to get there. So we're going to go 180 degrees, and we're going to end up over here in the second quadrant. Now, I told you a few minutes ago that every time we pass one of these axis lines, our numbers flip-flop. So if we look at A that started as 2, negative 5, 90 degrees, my numbers would flip-flop here. So it would be 5, 2, but I don't want to stop there because I want to go 180, another 90 degrees. They flip-flop back. So A prime actually has the numbers in exactly the same order that they start. It's just that your signs are different depending on what quadrant you're in. So we're going 180 degrees. So we're over here in the second quadrant. I'm going to keep my numbers in the same order as A. There we go. And in the second quadrant, my X values are negative, and you can see that right there on the X-axis. They're negative numbers, and my Y values are positive. So I'm going to change that to negative 2, positive 5, and then I'm going to graph it. So from the origin, back to negative 2, up to positive 5, and that becomes my A prime. Let me get rid of some of my squiggles here. All right, let's do the same thing with B. B is currently at 4, -3. We're going 180 degrees. So the numbers flip-flop, then they flip-flop back. So we keep them in the same order. 4, -3. Actually, let's just do 4, 3 because we don't know the signs. Okay, so 2 boxes brings us up here to the second quadrant. In that quadrant, the X is a negative, the Y's are positive. So I'm going to put X as negative. I'm going to keep my 3 as positive, and then I graph it. -4 up to 3. And that is B prime. And then I take a ruler or a straight edge and I attach them. Okay. So if you notice, the A, the original A, the red, the pre-image is on the left, but when you rotate it 180 degrees, it actually shifts over to the right because it's turning 180 degrees. All right. So to sum it up, 90-degree clockwise or counterclockwise, you flip-flop the numbers, but the signs have to match whatever quadrant those numbers, whatever quadrant the numbers are in. 180 degrees, you do not flip-flop the numbers, but you have to change the signs according to the quadrants. All right. I'm going to show you one more thing while I'm thinking of it. If I go back here, and you might want to jot this somewhere just to help you. Quadrant 1 is going to have positive X numbers, positive Y numbers. Quadrant 2 is going to have negative X numbers, positive Y numbers. Quadrant 3 is going to have negative X numbers, negative Y numbers. And quadrant 4 is going to have positive X numbers, negative Y numbers. And the way I get that is just looking at the graph. If I was going to put a point in the fourth quadrant, I'd need to go over on the X, and all those numbers are positive. And I need to go down on the Y, and all those numbers are negative. So you don't really need to memorize them unless you want to. All right, thank you.